So let's talk to Jonathan Gullis, former Conservative MP for Stoke-on-Trent North. He's live at Tory Party Conference. Jonathan, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm very well indeed. I'm looking for Keir Starmer. He's not up there, is he? I mean, Rishi Sunak said such a hot ticket up there this week that they're surprised that Keir hasn't been given one by somebody to show up.
Well, there's so many freebies on in and around the fringes as well as the leadership stalls. So, yes, I am shocked that Keir hasn't turned up to stock up on cups, fake tan and M&Ms that have been readily available for many delegates here today.
Absolutely right. But, I mean, on a serious note, I mean, Keir Starmer, who thought that he would be this bad as a Prime Minister? I mean, I thought he wouldn't be great, but I had no idea that he would be this absolutely appalling state of affairs.
Well, Mike, to be fair to Rishi Sunak, he did say very clearly during the general election campaign that Labour would destroy this country within 100 days.
Yeah.
And I think they actually achieved that quicker. So to be fair to them, they have delivered something quite extraordinary in fewer than 100 days. That's to make sure that pensioners have had £300 stolen off them, to be riddled with scandal going on, all regarding, obviously, Lord Ali's penthouse apartment, or the new free school maybe that's due to open there, so students can revise if they want to for their GCSEs. Of course, the free suits and glasses, £32,000 worth of the stuff, and then all the other tickets and glory, because of course for Keir Starmer it's fine. He's a good guy, he's Labour, so of course it doesn't matter for him. If it's anyone else who does it, they're wrong, they're bad. So the hypocrisy is off the scale, and the British public have seen right through it.
They really have. And I think people have actually been quite surprised and shocked at the number of freebies. I mean, you know, the mainstream media appears to be sort of moving away from the story at the moment, but I don't see why they should, because in my view, there's a lot more to come out, isn't there? I mean, only this weekend we discovered there's another £16,000 that he got for more clothing. So that's 32,000 quid's worth of clothes he's supposed to have bought. He doesn't look like he's dressed in 32,000 quid's worth of clothes. He then, it turns out, registered that in the wrong manner, registered it as office cost. It turns out as well that there's a further house in Soho that they've been using, which is also owned by Lord Ali. I mean, this sleaze just goes on and on, doesn't it?
Well, what I find quite bizarre is that Sir Keir Starmer has now broken on at least a couple of occasions the parliamentary rules when it comes to declaring things late, for example, as we have had with his wife's clothing being bought by Lord Ali, and of course others before that. And yet the Commissioner for the Parliamentary Standards Authority hasn't yet seen fit to investigate it, despite the fact this is more than one breach. And it may just be he needs to do a letter of apology like other MPs have had to do in the past. But how is it that Keir Starmer's not being asked at the very least to apologise when others, I think, who are backbenchers would have been asked to do so there? And the sniff test, as you say, just isn't being passed. I mean, I think the one that's the worst of all is the fact that Lord Ali gave £10,000 to Sue Gray's son, a now MP in House of Commons, and long after that received his parliamentary pass, which we're led to believe was approved by Sue Gray herself. Remember that number 10 pass that gives him access to all areas, to all meetings with civil servants and political aides. And yet no one's actually explained why. Why did he have this pass? What was he actually doing in 10 Downing Street? And I think these are legitimate questions that the Labour Party should stop being ignorant and arrogant about, and actually have the decency to explain and give us the truth.
Yeah, absolutely right. Now, I've heard that you've been trying to get yourself back into the teaching profession, and you found it slightly more difficult than you thought. I mean, this comes as no surprise to me. I mean, I could have told you this would happen if, you know, you are considered to be, by most of the teaching unions, who've just accepted a 5.5% pay rise, by the way, to be anathema. You know, worse than the devil himself. You know, they're never going to let you back in, are they?
So, yes, Mike, I made a mistake of being, I think, too honest in an interview where I said I have applied for a number of jobs, both in the private sector and in schools. And when I was asked separately, do I think my politics could hold me back from getting a job in schools, I said yes, and that's the truth of it, like you say. When I entered the profession, even though it was always centre-left leaning, it was always tolerant of different views. When I left the profession, and certainly during my time as a Member of Parliament, unless you're willing to be pro-white privilege, which I'm certainly not, unless you're willing to claim that biological sex doesn't matter, which I'm not, then there are, of course, some schools and some teachers in the system who were, you know, would see me as the devil, and that's fine, that's their right to see that if they wish to. But when I have applied for these schools, I have wondered, not the schools specifically I've applied to, but I have wondered in the profession, simple Google search on my name, and I'm going to have teachers going, oh, we can't have this person in there. But yet, if they want to have their far-left net zero gender activism in their classrooms, somehow that's appropriate as long as you're sympathetic to those causes. So let's be real about this. We know that there's too much politicisation in the classroom going on at this moment in time. I think that's a very damning indictment on the profession, because actually there are many good teachers who just do the job for the right reasons. They want to give kids opportunities, they want to give kids hope, they want to let kids achieve, and they do go into schools to impart knowledge and try and keep them safe. And so I think those teachers deserve full plaudits, but sadly with every profession there's always a few bad eggs.
But isn't that a problem, though? Because, I mean, they're always telling us, aren't they, the teachers, that, we have real trouble retaining teachers. Retention is a massive problem. People get into the job and they don't like it, or they feel like they're working too hard, it's not really rewarding, it's not what they expected. And yet they're obviously banning certain people from even working in the profession. So, maybe somebody needs to have a word with them and say, look, if you want to actually boost the numbers of teachers, and maybe it would be good to have more male teachers than female teachers, you need to, be less political.
I think this is the problem, isn't it, at the end of the day, that we need more teachers. There is, without doubt, a recruitment and retention crisis, which has been a plague on both Labour and Conservative houses over the last 20 years. But like you say, the problem we have is that I think you are right-wing leaning, as you are if you go to university, this doesn't feel like a safe place for you. And I think that's part of the problem. And ultimately, we should be allowed to have diverse views and opinions. But most importantly, teachers should keep their politics out of the classroom. Those discussions are personal views. Those discussions are for parents to have at home. And when children are older, as in when they go to university, that's when they can, or if they don't choose to, want to engage via other means and forms, that's when they have those debates and discussions with a wider audience. The teachers are there to impart knowledge, to keep children safe, and to make sure that they do the very best in their exams so they can go on to achieve and succeed. That's why I entered the profession for those 8 years before I became Member of Parliament. And if I have an opportunity to go back, I would also be very keen to do so, because I would love the opportunity. But at the same time, I don't want to be, just because of who I am as a politician, to somehow be who I am as a person at the end of the day. I'm very proud to have stood by the things I've said and spoken up for the people that I served in Stoke-on-Trent North for the last 4.5 years before being sadly unelected. But at the same time, when I was a teacher, my responsibility was to make sure children were safe, to make sure they achieved, to make sure they succeed, and that's what I was always proud to do, day in, day out.
Absolutely right. And just finally, Jonathan, are you backing any particular individual yet for the leadership of the Tory party?
Well, as you know, Mike, I was running Priti Patel's campaign, and very sad to see her drop out. But I have decided, as we've arrived at conference, that I'm throwing my support behind Robert Jenrick to be the leader of the Conservative Party. I think that not just the issue of immigration, which he's been incredibly sound on, I saw that firsthand when I was working with him in Parliament, particularly over the Rwanda bill, which he wanted to see toughened up so we would definitely get those planes off the ground. But actually, what I've been most proud of is the fact he's talking about the NHS, a fifth more funding than there was in 2010, yet no improved outputs. We need to build homes. Those millennials, 25 to 40-year-olds, who aren't able to get on the property ladder, it's a national scandal, and the Conservative Party should hang their head in shame, and we've allowed Labour to grasp the nettle when they shouldn't have been able to do so. And of course, he's also talking very much about making sure that we actually talk about that integration in our society, that you can be a multi-ethnic, multicultural society, but we all need to be underpinned by those core British values, rather than having segregation, which does exist in many of our large towns and cities across the country. Those are just sadly facts that we've seen, and actually that's not a healthy place, because we want to celebrate and enjoy the rich culture and diversity that we have in our country, but as I say, underpinned by those core British values that unites us all and treats us all equally.
Jonathan, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Jonathan Gullis there, former Conservative MP for Stoke-on-Trent North, live from Tory Party conference.